SBM Intelligence has put out a new survey that reviews the quality of life of the Nigerian family, where Nigerian families actually thrive. Quality of life ranking states on safety, schools, power, and affordability. And we're happy to have David Olujinmi with us, financial analyst with SBM Intelligence. Last time we had David on the show, of course, we were talking about the Jollof Index from Hormuz to the kitchen. It's Eid. Happy Eid, by the way. Thanks for joining us. People are at homes. They're probably eating their jollof rice with ram meat and so on, depending on whether they can afford it or not. Talk to us about this survey. Is this the first one from SBM? Have you done this before? And talk about the methodology.
So this is the first one of its kind from SBM. And the reason we did this, it's a perception index. The methodology, it's a perception index. We surveyed respondents across states. We surveyed respondents across 8 states.
Okay, so 8.
So it wasn't comprehensive to all the 36 states, 774 local governments. It was just based on we ensured that it touched all the geopolitical zones.
Okay.
So Lagos, Oyo in southwest, Rivers, Cross Rivers in the south-south, then Anambra in the southeast, Kano, Bauchi, Kano in the south, in the northwest, Bauchi in the northeast, and FCT in the north-central. Okay. So basically some of the states in Nigeria that would classify as some of the most, what I call most urbanized states across their regions.
So there's an urban tilt to it as well?
Yes, there's an urban tilt. There's an urban tilt to it.
Okay, great. Now, there's one part of the report, I enjoyed reading it. Kano continuously featured as #1 across a number of, so Nigeria's best and worst states for families. Kano tops the quality of life ranking. Cross River ranks last on one of 11 of 15 dimensions. Nearly 9 in 10 of its residents want to. I thought Cross River was a tourism. So, but wait, before we go to Cross River, let's go to Kano first. Why? I sent this report to somebody that lives in the Cross River. I was like, hey, what's going on? I thought your stay was,
So being here is like a hot seat because I already knew that some of these questions were going to come up. The first thing, like I stated, it's a perception index. Okay. How do people in those places view or how they perceive the environment to be like?
Yeah,
that is what it's based upon. So we did. There's in our questionnaire we had a number of questions we asked them.
Yeah, and
the report is based on their responses to these questions. So for Kano, for example, it's one of the places where Kano ranks high is in safety.
Right, safety.
So people generally feel safe in their communities. Then Kano also ranks very high when it comes to childcare access of their access to primary healthcare centers, access to health facilities in their communities. In a state like Cross River, one of the things that we came to understand is that with people who live in Cross River, who actively live in Cross River is not as affordable as they would like it to be.
Right.
Compared to neighboring states just within the south-south. Let's say, I know Cross River is almost on the edge of the country, so probably compared to states like Akwa Ibom, Cross River is ranking very high when it comes to affordability in terms of school fees, then also the part where people don't feel the impact of governance, because a lot of people complain about the state of roads. There's also like you said, clean states.
Right.
That was one of the paradox for me, because this is a state that for many years had the PR, branding, reputation of being one of Nigeria's cleanest states, but it's becoming that in the urban settlements, in the urban areas, they have a lot of problem with waste.
Okay.
So beyond the fact that, beyond all of the responses, I think it's a report that governments in those states can actually pick up and say, okay, these are issues that actively affect the life of people that live in these communities, and work on it.
Look, I've said this several times that we really do need to focus on the governors. Exactly. They're the chief executives they're the CEOs of their states, right? Yeah. So, we did a thing on debt a couple of days ago, looking at, debt in Benue State. I think we had the Lagos State's finance commissioner on the show, as well. So I think we really want to put a focus on the states, because their FAC allocations are higher. They're paying, so most of them are paying down their debt. All right, so look, there's a table, very interesting table here. Again, I guess you're going to tell me it's perception. I like this table. So safety score, childcare access, grid hours, power, and then percentage likely to relocate. So explain this to me, because Lagos are you based on the perception? Yeah, help me out, because you're telling me that the commercial capital of Nigeria, more people in Lagos want to leave compared to Kano.
So beyond this, one of the things that this table here basically talks about the best two and the worst two.
Okay.
There's 4 others not included. When you look at percentage likely to relocate, you see Oyo ranking as number 1. 1.8% of the people surveyed in Oyo State say that they are likely to relocate. Okay. That's a very minute percentage. Yeah. So the thing here is that when it comes to Lagos, you come to understand that you also now look at where they are likely to relocate to.
Okay.
Abuja ranked highest amongst all our respondents as the place they are looking looks likely for them to relocate to.
Okay.
So it's like I said again,
Cross River
percentage.
Is heavy.
So the thing here is that
everybody wants to leave Cross River, because almost 9 out of 10 people
want to leave Cross River. I don't live in Cross River, so I don't know. So it's a situation that probably calls for some bit of introspection. Yeah. On the part of the government, just the local government and the state government. Yeah. Okay, what's going on that makes people feel this way? One other index that would really play out in this likely to relocate part is the index of satisfaction.
Right.
Oyo people ranked highest on satisfaction. Like, we all know that, okay, the federal government controls an integral part of the economy. We have all of we talk about inflation, talk about, basically when people talk about the economy, they always point to the federal government. But one thing we've come to understand that, with this report, the state governors also have a role to play in how people perceive living in the states. So, I'll use myself as now.
You are a journeyman. You are spread out all over Nigeria.
So I grew up in Lokoja, Kogi State, right?
But I was
born in Sokoto.
And your family is in?
My family still stays there. Okay. So, but one thing is that when I was growing up as a child, like from secondary school, there was a perception of the place I lived in. It was not all that.
Right.
But a time came. I went to the university, I went to OAU, I went to Ife. Yeah. Coming back to where I grew up, I knew that things had become worse.
Okay.
And I wasn't blaming it on the federal government. You just know that every state has an economy. Right. There's also the macroeconomics of every state. Right. The governors have to now sit down and look at, okay, what are the things that would promote direct consumer spending in my state?
Right.
How do people view the living conditions in my state? That's why it's good to focus on roots as a state governor, but there's more. Yeah. Things that will promote, the economic welfare of the state. A lot of our governors do not reason from that perspective that the economic welfare of my state is actually my primary responsibility at this point, economic security. So that's why you begin to see metrics like this. For Lagos State, it's not because Lagos is not the commercial capital, but it's because Lagos, frankly speaking, is crowded. Yeah. Lagos, frankly speaking, it's a massively, I think, the most densely populated city in Africa.
And in terms of size, it's the smallest in the whole country.
Small.
Right.
When you look at the living conditions of a lot of people, because even when you look at our report, you discover that we also tracked income. Yeah. So we did a report on the income bracket. You discover that a large percentage of when it comes to people who earn below 100,000, 17.6%. So we tracked it at high income, middle income, low income earners. So 17.6% of the people we tracked, the respondents we had in Lagos, earned below 100,000. That was the second lowest, only lower than Kano, only lower than the percentage in Kano. So you discover that in Lagos, and you can imagine earning below 100,000
in a very expensive
city like Lagos.
So I guess that feeds into the perception.
All of it feeds into the perception. Lagos is a state I tell people that you can find the spectrum of everything, from the people who probably have the worst living conditions in Nigeria to the people who have the best living conditions. You can find that wide spectrum in Lagos.
But I guess if you were to rank states based on where you can make it the most, Lagos will always rank as number one. Destroy everyone else. Okay, real quick, just a few minutes ago. Let's on power. This was percentage of power optimistic, 90% in Oyo State. Okay. So I said something right. Yeah. Look at percentage under 8 hours per day. 45%. Right. The only place where,
okay, we see that
Cross River 63%.
Yeah. You can see it. So one thing with Oyo people is that the power situation is quite terrible.
Right.
It's quite, frankly speaking, bad.
So how are they so optimistic then?
I feel that's where the optimism comes into play.
They believe
that's
that it's going to get better?
Like you can see the same thing almost applicable in Rivers State,
yeah.
where you have about almost 60% of the people reporting that terrible level of power.
But yet they are 82%.
82%.
You know, Nigeria as well. You know, there was one time we're the number one happiest country in the world.
Exactly.
Or something.
Like I said, that's where we have to come back to the fact that it's a perception index.
Yeah.
The way the people feel about how situations. So for Oyo State, I don't know. I think in Oyo State, the thing there is that they believe that
I gotta go there and talk to the people.
So they believe
you don't have power, but you're optimistic.
So it can only get better.
I shouldn't be laughing. Yeah, it can get better.
It can only get better.
God day.
So the idea is that it can only get better, and I'll try and feed back into some of the things that I would say the Oyo State government is doing. For example, they're one of the few states that has built a power plant. They've tried to build a power plant. They're also channeling gas to Ibadan.
Right.
So I think there's this perception that okay, now that we have state control over electricity,
it should get better over time.
It should get better over time.
That is actually a really important point that you've raised there.
They have that optimism that okay, the state government is trying to make efforts to do what the electric cannot do.
Look, see, and this, we're almost at a time, the Electricity Act is incredibly important because it decentralizes power across the states.
Across the state, and allows the states to say, okay, you can generate, in fact, it also decentralizes power to the point that you can generate as much as 100 megawatts without getting all of the massive approvals that you used to, without all of the regulatory loopholes that used to cloud the system in the past.
Yeah.
So in a state like Anambra, you would say, okay, now you have this percentage. The power condition is terrible.
Yeah.
You can see that for
81% getting power under 8
hours a day.
Yeah.
But the optimism there is low. All of it is a function of
they know it's bad and they're not optimistic.
Unlike in Kano, where you have Kano people have like
9% under 8 hours. That's pretty good. So only 9% of them are getting power under 8 hours a day, which means majority of them get power more than 8 hours a day.
So they also are optimistic. All of it's one thing I've come to discover from the report is that the people, Nigerians are different in the mode of thinking.
Yeah.
We're
a diverse country.
We're a diverse country, but across the, like I said, satisfaction.
Yeah.
If you check the reports now, you look at, okay, earning levels.
Actually, let's jump to that. Let's quickly. I know. I don't know. We're almost out of time. Let's get to the earning power because you had Abuja. As number. Abuja. Is that because most people earn money in Abuja because the state government is?
Because the federal government is located
there.
Because seat of power is there. There are a lot of political. It's basically the political capital of the country. Right. Everything that revolves around Nigeria's politics. When you want to get into that space, you have to go to Abuja. All the embassies are there. All the NGOs, international organizations, international social organizations, they all are in that
Abuja
space. So that's
okay. But Cross River is number 2. You have Cross River as number 2 on the income, and yet you're saying that most people in Cross River want to leave.
Before we jump into the conversation, I said something about the earning power and the cost of living.
Right.
It shows that there is a high cost of living. There is a perception of high cost of living in the place that people generally just feel like it's not worth it.
Yeah.
For example, one of the respondents we spoke to in Cross River State says his street is so bad that even a wheelbarrow cannot pass through it.
Oh dear.
You can imagine how bad. And it's a situation that we have. Cross River has one of the worst number of bad roads. They have a very high number of bad roads in the country.
What's the name of that? They are big tourism.
Obudu.
Thank you. You can't even. I don't think you can drive in there, right? You can't even. Yeah. And there was that big one that.
You can drive to the town, but you can't drive to the ranch itself.
What's the name of the
Tinapa?
Tinapa also. Because I remember we had the prior governor on the morning show, our flagship show, and he was talking about how you had to take a helicopter there or something. You couldn't even fly in. So they have a tourism potential, but the roads are so bad. You can't access them.
So from Calabar to Obudu, it's about 12 hours.
Good gracious Lord.
You can imagine how bad the road has to be for you to move from Calabar to that town 12 hours. And it's the same thing in state like, I think there's Ogoja.
Yeah.
All of the Ecom part of Cross River. There's also that part where people complain about the roads are just too bad. The roads are just too bad.
It's a pre-election year, so maybe there'll be a number of projects.
maybe we'll
fix that. Okay, what was next? This is such a good report. I really enjoyed it. What was the next thing you had? Okay, I think it's your recommendations or after income. No. Kids. Let's go. Let's go to the kids. Yesterday was Children's Day. Yesterday was Children's Day. Yes, you said where Nigerian kids get the best start. Talk to us about this because you got Kano, Abuja. We got to float this so our audience can see this. And by the way, I was going to touch on rivers and safety. With all the you have rivers at number 2 for safety.
I'll try and touch on something that someone said.
Real quick, almost out of time. Yeah.
One thing that happens a lot in Nigeria is that people hear about things, people don't experience things.
Right.
When you start to experience things, so for example, now you see Kano when it comes to childcare access, security. About 80% of our respondents said they are very comfortable with their children being out in the dark.
Right.
In Kano State. This is a state that is sitting in the hot spot of a lot of banditry,
insecurity, and so on.
Boko Haram, terrorism, and all of that. But it's just the way the people perceive the environment to be. They perceive it as generally safe.
Yeah.
Unlike in places where people generally live there, they know what's going on there. But it also touches on the part of underreporting sometimes. There's a lot of I don't want to say overreporting, but a lot of reportage goes on about actions in certain parts of the country, leaves out certain parts of the country. Then on certain parts of the country, the only kind of action that can catch people's attention is the kind of action that wants to catch people's attention. So you want to talk about, for example, you want to talk about Borno State. The thing that would really get the excitement going is ISWAP did something, Boko Haram did something, but there's a lot of things happening going on in those spaces outside of the things that people want to hear.
Yeah. So school quality, Kano, Abuja, Rivers, even Oyo as well, and to some extent Bauchi as well, pretty high rank. So is that public and private schools or just private school? Is that mixed there?
So the fact is, like, it was going to be majorly private schools, based on the fact that it's urban
the urban areas. Sure. So the divide between private and public schools in Nigeria, that thing is widening. It's huge. All right, finally, just quick. We're out of time. Your recommendations. You basically said 1, Cross River should address quality of life.
The federal government should study
Kano's childcare
policy.
Yeah. Anambra has to address the power failure. Lagos should also, I guess, study
healthcare.
Yeah, primary healthcare.
So that's the thing. We have millions of residents in Lagos. Yeah. We have 20 general hospitals. We have 2 federal. I think there is Igbobi. There is also Lut.
Yeah.
There's just 2 federal hospitals, and I think there needs to be a lot more attention. The primary healthcare centers need to become bigger.
There's also a divide between private and public too, right?
Exactly.
Because the private hospitals
are basically catering for all of it. It's hard for people to now. In most states, it's not like that, actually.
And people are using pharmacies as their.
Yeah.
I remember SBM had something on that a while back where you talk about how people are using pharmacies as hospitals.
In Lagos State, one of the things that is very peculiar with Lagos State is the fact that private healthcare providers are basically like, they take up a bulk of healthcare responsibility in Lagos.
In Lagos, yeah.
In most states of Nigeria, it's not like that. That's not the case. Most people still go to government-run hospitals to go and get healthcare.
And the quality compared to private, there's a gap.
Yeah.
David, look, you guys at SBM, your reports, I love them. They're very informative.
So
makes for a great discussion. I encourage everybody to check it out. David Olujinmi, of course, financial analyst with SBM Intelligence. Thanks for talking. And happy Eid. Thanks for taking the time to join us today.